All right, let's talk about work laws and responsibilities. We're going to go through the work-related forms and laws and then responsibilities on the job quickly. The goals of this first part is to discuss the purpose of various work-related forms and then the provisions of major employment laws. So it's important before you start working to think through and be familiar with these different forms and the laws that exist to protect you and to protect the employer. When you get a job, the government's going to require that you fill out a bunch of different forms. You will fill out some, others your employers will complete. If you're under the age of 16, you also need a work permit. Some of you may know that if you have a job already. Some forms like the W-2 and the W-4 are part of the income tax process. The W-4 is a pretty basic form, but it can be sometimes confusing. But basically, it's just asking for your name, address, social security number, and some other pieces of information. And then it tells the employer how much to withhold from your paycheck for income taxes. So, in other words, when you get your paycheck, you're not just going to be getting all of the money that your salary says you will get because the employer, your company will withhold some money, anticipating what you will have to contribute in taxes to the federal government. So there are some things that lower the amount of taxes that you have to pay, things like allowances, which are reductions in the amount of tax withheld from your check. So that might be, for things like having children or other things that diminish your um, taxable income. And then exempt status. There are some people who are exempt from taxes. Most likely that will not be you. But there are those who will not earn enough in the year to owe any federal income taxes. So that would make you exempt. They'll also be withholding Social Security taxes. Social Security is taken out automatically from your paycheck and put aside, theoretically, for you so that later on when you retire, you will receive the money back that was put aside for you. There's some issues with Social Security now, but hopefully when you retire, your benefits will be paid back to you monthly, and typically not just you but also your employer are contributing to Social Security. Your Social Security number, which you should know, hopefully, is your permanent work ID number. You have a Social Security card somewhere. Those are the main things that you should know about that. Work permit application. Many states require minors, people under the age of legal adulthood, to get a work permit. So if you need a work permit, go talk to your school counselor, and they can set you up with that. You need a Social Security number, proof of your age, permission from your parent or legal guardian. Usually there's no charge for that. W-2 is the summary of all of the income you earned during the year and all the amounts that your employer withheld from taxes. So you get your W-2 at the end of the year, and it tells you basically how much did you earn, how much taxes were taken out from the federal government, from state governments, etc. Before you start working, you have to complete what's called an I-9. This is to make sure to verify your identity and that you're eligible to work in the U.S. You have to present forms of identification to prove your identity. There's a lot of laws that the federal government has enacted to protect workers. We have a whole department in our executive branch, the Department of Labor, and they're responsible for enforcing these different labor laws that provide benefits, that establish things like the minimum wage, things like if you get hurt on the job, you can get workers' compensation, they establish safe working conditions. The Social Security Act of 1935 established this Social Security benefit that's taken out of your paycheck, but then ultimately paid back to you, hopefully. There's also unemployment insurance that was created many years ago by the United States government. Unemployment insurance provides benefits to workers who lose their job through no fault of their own. This is a huge deal right now with all the coronavirus stuff going on. They've expanded some of those unemployment programs and allowed many people to be able to still be paid during this time. There's also something called the Fair Labor Standards Act, which started and established the 40-hour work week. Anytime over that, you're supposed to be paid time and a half. It also established the minimum wage, which is the lowest wage any employer may pay an employee as established by law. Workers' compensation pays benefits to workers if you're injured or get ill, or if there's a death, it's paid to your family. If it was something that happened on the job, the employer is responsible for employee injuries or illnesses that are the result of employment, regardless of fault. There's also something called the Family and Medical Leave Act of 1993. It allows employees to take up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave in a 12-month period for certain medical and family situations. Um, so, things like the birth of a child or other family events, you may take 12 weeks of unpaid leave and um, still have a job to go back to. Though some are pushing for that to be extended and for it to be paid leave, that's been a push. So as I said, birth and care of a newborn child, care of an immediate family member, medical leave when they're unable to work because of serious health conditions, those are all things that count under that. There's also laws against discrimination. The Equal Pay Act, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Age Discrimination and Employment Act, and the Americans with Disabilities Act. Those are all acts that protect particular groups from being discriminated against in terms of employment. 5.2, we're going to look at responsibilities on the job, discuss employee responsibilities at work, describe employer responsibilities to employees. So what are you responsible for when you get a job? First of all, you're responsible for competent work. That means the quality of your work should be to the degree that the employer can sell it or use it to represent the company favorably. It's just basic standard. Punctuality, being ready to start work at the appointed time, having a good, pleasant attitude, having loyalty and respect to your employer within reason. Dependability means you can be counted on to do what you say you will do. Initiative, taking the lead, recognizing what needs to be done, being an active worker. Interest, you should generally act like you want to do the things that your job is asking you to do. Self-evaluation is also important. The ability to take criticism and to assess your own progress, to think about whether you're doing your best, etc. Those are all things that are important. Responsibilities to other employees, teamwork, thoughtfulness, loyalty. Those are all things that you should be displaying to the people that you work with. To customers, let's say you're working in some kind of customer service, helpfulness, courtesy and respect. These are just really basic things that in any job, whether it's customers or not, whether you're a teacher working with students or you're, I don't know, a lawyer working with clients, or a doctor working with patients, you want to have these basic general attitudes towards people. In terms of what the employer is responsible for providing you, there's adequate supervision, just providing new and current employees with the information and training they need to do their jobs well, fair policies in terms of human resources, like hiring, firing, raises, promotions, etc. Safe working conditions is something that the employer is responsible for providing. Open channels of communication to express concerns or ask questions or make suggestions. One would be also recognition of achievement. Having an evaluation of an employee's strengths and weaknesses, given, depending on the profession, being given merit pay raises, meaning higher pay for better work, bonuses, advancement opportunities, etc. So that wraps up chapter 5 on work and benefits.